So the developmental systems approach seems to be a system that talks about how people grow, people develop, specifically younger people, children, and babies and such, presumably because that time in your life, the early point in your life, will affect how you develop, will have a affect the trajectory in which you go. So they're saying that the agreed upon thing under the umbrella of developmental systems approach is that development is systematic, meaning that it exists within a system with multiple parts that influence each other, and it's also successive. So that's saying that one part affects the other and affects the other part, and they build upon each other. And so the idea here being that you can't really study like one aspect of development in a vacuum and say that, if we study socioeconomic status and how that affects people, that will be an accurate representation for what it's like to, or for, projecting into the future what a person's life will be like and creating programs and such that will help with that development. There's really a more holistic, systematic, and also looking at the successive, not successful over here, approach to things. So I really liked the whole synapse to society idea, which means we're going from the smallest internal kind of thing with the synapse to the large macro external effects. We're looking at all of these different things. It's a cross-disciplinary approach to looking at development. And so this actually feeds into the two main theories that we have been introduced to so far. One of them being Bronfenbrenner, and his basic idea is that there are different microsystems. So there's like you in the center here. Okay, we'll do a little person. And then there's these microsystems in the first level, which are like the direct interactions between you and adults or other siblings, any other individual, direct interactions between the individual, I'm saying you, but an individual and the people they have direct interaction with. And then there are the mesosystems, I believe is the next level. And that is when these other systems interact. So like parents interacting with school teachers, or maybe siblings interacting with parents. I'm not exactly sure, all the different combinations, but it's the fact that like when these different or the individuals you interact with in the microsystems interact with each other, even separate from the individual that's in question, you are affected by their interaction. So like a parents and teachers interacting with each other was the example given, which I think is the most clear in my mind. And then next you have the exosystem, which is going to be areas in the person's life that they're not directly involved in, but that does impact them. So things that are happening, like the example of the parents being at work, or like like teacher curriculum, when the teachers decide on a curriculum, for instance, that's going to affect the student's development, but the individual we're talking about wasn't in the room when this curriculum was decided, and wasn't involved in the process in any direct way. And then finally, or actually there's two more levels. There's this macro system here. And so that's going to be like society at large, laws, culture, these like kind of large systems, macro systems that we are born into and have a trickle down effect through all these levels. And it's probably less likely to be influenced by the individual, but let's be optimistic. One person can make a big change, as it might be more rare than the norm, but it does happen in history. And then finally, the Chronos system, which represents the effect of time. I like how in the Tao Te Ching it says that when acting, timing is everything. So the same event happening in a different time will affect people differently. And the example used in this that we were taught here is a new baby coming into a family will affect a child who is before school age a lot differently than a child who is currently involved in school and stuff like that. So this is Bronfenbrenner's, I believe that's how you say his name, theory of what is this, microsystems, I believe. So this is Bronfenbrenner. And then the other person we learned about is Gottlieb. Gottlieb? Is that how you spell it? And his basic idea was this idea of probabilistic epigenetics, or a probabilistic epigenesis. Probabilistic. And so epigenesis is the idea that your gene expression is influenced by the environment. So as opposed to being a static thing that you have no say in how it, I don't know why there's a tree growing off the roof, but this is that your genetic expression is influenced by external circumstances rather than just kind of being a self-contained system that doesn't care about external circumstances. And probabilistic is because I think that it's not like an exact science in like you can say that this X factor will influence the expression of a gene in this way, but maybe there's like a probabilistic chance that these factors will lead to this gene expression. So this really speaks to the idea that our systems are not, or our, I feel like it's kind of like an anti-deterministic, not in like it's out to disprove determinism or something like that, but it's like both of these, this whole developmental systems approach that we're learning about is not saying that like external and nature or nurture is going to determine, even the combination of two won't like necessarily determine like how you're going to develop, but that there is an interplay between the individual and the environment, and this, I think this what was the word used? Co-constitutive, that's a co-constitutive process in which the individual affects the environment affects the individual, and back and forth, and they like, create this system in which they develop. And so thinking from this perspective, which I think it's just an interdisciplinary approach, as it is being called, is first off very like realistic and kind of takes into account the world that we live in. It's nice to think, it would be ideal or kind of cool if we can isolate different factors of a person's development and then study those in isolation deeply, and then take what we've learned and say, okay, this applies to real life. When you study something in isolation like that, it's not really representative of what happens in the real world, where that factor is influenced by so many other factors. And so kind of being realistic about saying, okay, this development occurs in this a system that's complex and interdisciplinary allows us to be more realistic about the kinds of programs and techniques and such things that can be used to help influence positive development, particularly in youth, but I think at any stage in life, there is a lot of potential for, influencing our development. But yeah, understandably, the young ones, younger, from babies and children to adolescents, are developing at a very fast rate and are extremely impressionable. And there are windows. I'm sure we're going to learn about different stages of development in which language is development, or this is developing, or this is developing, and at a very fast rate. And so you can have a high impact if you take into account if these developmental systems approach, or this, like, thinking about things from this developmental systems approach, it can, is used to influence the programs and techniques used to influence development.